Have you ever just looked at the world and wondered, how can so much good and so much evil exist right next to each other? I mean, it's a tension you can feel every single day. Well, according to biblical scripture, this whole setup, it has an expiration date. There's a divine timeline at play, and it's all heading towards one massive final event, the Great Separation. Okay, let's dive into what that really means.
So, this one line from the book of Matthew really gives us the whole foundation. It's from a famous parable where a farmer's talking about why he doesn't just rip out all the weeds, the tares, that are growing up with his wheat. See, if he did it too early, he might damage the good stuff. So he says, nope, just let them grow side by side for now. It's this incredible picture of divine patience, right? Just letting everything ripen and come to maturity in its own time.
And that, of course, is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If we're all here in this field together, in this growing season of life, what on earth happens when the sorting finally begins? It's a heavy thought for sure. It kind of forces you to stop just looking at the world and start looking at yourself and where you stand.
Now, this whole idea isn't just from some one-off story. The concept of a final, decisive split is a really powerful and actually a recurring theme that's woven all through Scripture. It's painted with a bunch of different analogies, but the outcome, it's always the same. A clear, final division. No gray areas.
Okay, let's go back to that first parable for a second. You've got the wheat, it's valuable, it gives life, and it's carefully gathered and brought into the barn. That's a symbol of total safety, of salvation. And then you have the tares. They're basically these useless, harmful weeds. What happens to them? They're bundled up and thrown into the fire. The distinction couldn't be more stark. One is preserved, and the other is totally removed.
And then there's this other powerful picture from Matthew 25. You see a shepherd dividing his flock. And for a shepherd, this is just second nature. He knows his sheep, right? And he separates them from the goats. The sheep, they're placed on his right side, that's the place of honor, and they get a blessing. The goats, they go to the left, and they're destined for a curse. Again, it's a simple act of separation, but with absolutely eternal consequences.
And the imagery just keeps coming. You see it with a fishing net getting dragged in. The good fish are kept, the bad ones are just tossed out. You see it with a winnowing fan, which separates the heavy, valuable wheat grain from the worthless, lightweight chaff that just gets blown away and burned. The message is just so consistent. A day of sorting is coming.
So we've pretty much established what this separation is. But the scriptures, they go a level deeper. They start talking about the who and the why. And what you find is that this isn't some last-minute pop quiz. It's about an identity, a spiritual nature that God has known all along.
You know, a really useful way to think about this in our modern world is with this idea of spiritual DNA. Now, that's not a biblical term. You won't find it in there. But it's a great handle for us to grasp this concept that our core spiritual identity, our fundamental nature, it's not a mystery to our Creator. He knows who we belong to from the very, very beginning.
And this isn't some New Age concept. It is anchored right here in ancient Scripture. God says this to the prophet Jeremiah, "Before I even formed you in the belly, I knew you." I mean, that speaks to this incredibly profound, personal foreknowledge that just cuts right through our actions and sees the absolute core of who we are.
Just let that sink in for a minute. Nothing we do, good or bad, takes God by surprise. He isn't sitting up there guessing who's going to end up as wheat and who's going to be a tare. He already knows. He knows our hearts, our true spiritual lineage, and where our allegiance really lies. There is absolutely no faking it with him.
The Apostle John, he just lays it out so clearly. He talks about two distinct spiritual families, and he says you can tell them apart by their actions, or what the Bible calls their fruit. The children of God, they practice righteousness and they love people. The children of the devil, well, they don't. It's a binary choice, really, all based on our fundamental nature and who we're actually following.
Okay, so the big question is, what do we do with all this? If we are in this growing season right now, before the harvest, then this information isn't meant to scare us. It's meant to inspire us to act. It's a wake-up call to do some honest self-examination.
So here are 3 practical things to think about, like today. First, check your roots. That just means asking yourself, honestly, who or what is really sitting on the throne of your heart? Is it God, or is it something else? Second, produce good fruit. If your roots are in the right place, then your life should naturally start to show it, through kindness, integrity, love. And third, share the truth. Remember the parable mentioned laborers for the harvest? Well, that's a call for us to help other people understand this whole message of getting ready before it's too late.
So in light of all this, maybe the best way to wrap our heads around it is with a moment of personal reflection, almost like a prayer for readiness, to get our hearts aligned for that day.
It's this idea of being open and just asking God to search our hearts. It's an appeal for total clarity, to say, hey, if there's any tear in here, anything that's not from you, that's trying to grow where weeds should be, please root it out by your grace. It's about moving from a place of fear to a place of trust in His help.
And you know, the whole goal of a prayer like that is just to affirm our identity and ask for the strength to produce good fruit, so that the idea of the harvest becomes a source of, believe it or not, joyful anticipation instead of dread. It's all about being ready.
At the end of the day, this final separation, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The time is appointed. The only question left for every single one of us to answer is this one right here. Thank you for joining me.